What happens when water is exposed to EMF, or wireless radiation? Here's something you may not know. Water is conscious, and it responds vibrationally to whatever it is exposed to. At Omnia, we've done an experiment where we froze and photographed 3 samples of water. Water which was not exposed to EMF radiation, the baseline, looked like this. Water which was exposed to an EMF field, a 5G radiation field in fact, looked like this. And water which was exposed to EMF that is balanced by the Omnia radiation balancer looked like this. See the difference? Remember, your body is 70% water. And here's a special offer for the Journey to Truth crowd. Just enter the word truth in caps at the checkout for your 10% discount.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Welcome to our first episode officially on Rumble as our main channel now, since YouTube just gave us the axe, which again, thank you guys all for the loving support and all the encouragement and everything right now, because it's really almost been like a blessing in disguise. You know, somebody put it as, they said we shifted above the frequency of YouTube. I'm like, yeah, I like that.
I like that. Yeah.
I like that. So you know, YouTube was our home for a long time, and it's just time to move on because they don't want us anymore. So here we are, and we're going to move forward on Rumble, and who knows where else. You know, we're just going to keep growing from here. But we would like to invite you to our conference this year in May in Grafton, Illinois, May 13th through the 16th. We're hosting our 3rd conference, Rebels of Disclosure, and we have a great lineup this year. It's always a lot of fun. You know, it's kind of away from the city life. It's a beautiful resort. You know, there's bonfires, sky watches. It's very, you know, surrounded by nature, and it's so much fun. It's so much more than just a conference with the speakers. It's more of a getaway, really. You would want to spend 4 days at this place, even if you weren't going to a conference. That's how beautiful it is. So we're really excited, and all those tickets are available at rebelsofdisclosure.com. But if you can't make it in person, there are live stream passes, and we do encourage everyone to grab a live stream pass. If you want to know what to expect from the live stream pass, you can go to our Patreon or even further back on the Rumble library and watch some of the presentations from the years before, just to give you an idea of what to expect when you purchase the live stream pass. And you'll have the ability to ask the presenters question through the live stream on Telegram. So that's a cool feature. And all the in-person tickets include a live stream replay. So, and there are day passes, but rebelsofdisclosure.com, all the information is there, and we hope to see you there. Tonight, we are joined by Aage Nost. He has quite the resume, and I was reading through what you sent me. I'm like, holy cow, I can't read all this online. But, you know, you're a former pilot, and you've had some really interesting UFO sightings. And, you know, you explained that you have some theories on where they come from, when they come from, which is really interesting. And if you guys don't know Aage, he covers time travel a lot, and we're going to be covering time travel today, along with, you know, timeline shifts, parallel universes, parallel existence, paradoxes, you know, a man from another country that doesn't exist. We're going to get into all of it, and even how to possibly talk to spirits through something called the Tesla Spirit Radio. So we have quite the show in store for you today, but welcome to the show, Aage.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
It's good to be here. I like the saying goes, you know, I had never met a microphone I did not like. So here I am.
Well, beautiful. So let's start with your life as a pilot and how you started noticing UFOs. What was your first experience with that? And then we can get into some of your theories on where and when they come from.
Well, actually, the first experiences that I've had with UFOs started way back in Europe before I even came to the United States. I was probably a young kid, 11 or 12 or something like that. I got a hold of some UFO books and read them, and then I had a neighbor kid that talked about it a lot, and we were, sharing information and things, and I got to think about that. Wait a minute, they are flying through the air. They have no wings, no motors, so they are opposing the gravity somehow. If they're doing that, going through that, they should create ripples in the Earth magnetic field. And I found out it did, because I built a UFO detector. I built it around a compass, because if there's ripples in the Earth magnetic field, it should affect a compass needle when they're passing by. So I put a compass there and a bell to alarm that will let me know when something's going on, and that ran through a battery and a breaker switch all the way back to. I took the compass needle like this and I put 2 wires on the side of it. So if the compass needle it moved, it touched one of the wires, and the electric circuit went off and the bell went off, and I could grab my binoculars and go outside and see what I saw. And yes, I did. I saw something. Twice I remember seeing that. There were other time that it ran off, but I don't remember seeing anything. Probably cloudy, I'm not sure. But that thing worked. And it's really simple. If you go to broadcastteamalpha.com, going into our website, in the picture gallery, you'll find a drawing on it. And you can probably make your own UFO detector for, I don't know, $25 probably. The compass, that should be a metal casing.
Now I want to do that.
Yeah,
That's
right.
amazing.
It's so simple. It's simpler than falling off a log, actually, because this is drawn out so you can make it yourself. And then, of course, later on, after I left the country at the age of 25 and came to the United States and go to flight school. And I did that, got all my certificates and ratings all the way out to multi-engine instructor. And I flew for a living for 23 years. We had a flight school, our own international air taxi, and that grew into an air carrier. And I had some experiences while flying, because when you fly as much as I do, then you see stuff that shouldn't be there.
Right.
But the first thing we do when we see that, we try to explain it away. Nah, that didn't happen. I just imagined that, or there was just a bird after all. And we go into everywhere trying to explain it so that our paradigm will accept it.
Right.
There
Yep.
were one time I was going in and out of the clouds, and we were in a King Air. I think it was on a medical flight, and I don't know where we were going. We were maybe going to the burn center in Houston, and I had a doctor and a couple of nurses in the back, and I was in the captain's seat, and then I had a co-pilot. And then I saw there was just like a little pencil about looking like that, sharp at the front end and just even at the back. And it came from the left. Of course, you're seeing it backwards now on the screen. It came from the left and traveled across our altitude, about 24,000 feet, and it went very fast. I think it probably just took maybe a few seconds from the corner of my eye on the left, right in front of us, until it disappeared on the right. And I think it was probably about maybe a couple, 2 or 3 miles ahead of us. And when you're up there, 24,000 feet, doing several hundred miles an hour, and something go right across your altitude, a couple of miles away, that is close, really close.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked over to the co-pilot and I asked him, "Did you see that?" He looked over at me and he looked straight forward, didn't say a thing. And I think I may have asked him one more time, "Did you see that?" And he didn't say anything. So I left it alone. I knew what I saw. And we got on the ground, and I think I asked him one more time. And he never wanted to talk about it. Later on, I I discovered that he was a born-again Christian, and anything that is not in the Bible and they cannot explain by biblical text, that is a demon.
Right. I've
And
talked about that many times. Right.
yeah, I understand that, and I'm okay with that because that's his paradigm. I can understand if he believed it was, he wouldn't want to talk about it. So that's okay. But we both know it be so. I'm sure he's thinking about it even to this day.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, well, are you finished? I'll let you finish that story first, and then I have a question for you.
Yeah, I that was pretty much the end of that thing. I had a few others, but
You, you know,
these stories, they are everywhere right now. Go outside at night, grab a chair, and have binoculars and look up in the sky. You're gonna see stuff. They're
I agree.
everywhere.
I agree. It's just
I
too cold.
agree.
It's
Yep.
too cold for me to go out there and do that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna be quiet after you said that because we're gonna have 70 degrees today.
oh shit, yeah.
Where are you at?
Tucson, Arizona.
Oh,
Oh,
no
nice.
wonder.
You know, it's really interesting. I've been so drawn to Arizona specifically lately. I've almost thought about planning a trip there, and I don't know why, but just something. I'll just have a connection with that area. So, but I want to go back into these UFOs and how they travel. You know, you say you were able to detect them. I just read Sean David Morton's Sands of Time book, and the employee in that book who used to work at Area 51 claimed when he got into what we call the sports model that like Bob Lazar worked on and stuff.
Yeah.
When he got into the craft, time sped up basically. So he would get into the craft and he would only be there for what felt like 30 minutes, but 18 hours would pass outside of the craft. And that's when they realized that the technology within the craft isn't moving through space and time, but space and time is moving around it. And that was a huge revelation for them and their technology and how it worked. So does that correlate with some of the theories that you've developed as far as where and when these craft come from and how they move the way they do?
I can see that happening because the technology used in some of the crafts, and of course it's not all of them because there's all kinds of different technologies that make them fly. Some of them use regular nuts and bolts like we do, and others they use crystal technology. And then we have ships like the one that came down in the 1960s over at the Helgoland Island over in the North Sea. And I mean, a 60-meter long craft, basically empty, but chairs and few amenities, no engine, no, except for the up front, there was just a position where there were two hands that you could put on a panel, but it had no engine in it. So obviously it was flown by consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that when that craft that had the difference in time inside from outside, I don't think that was necessarily consciousness unless the craft was conscious itself, which there also is there is something to say for that.
Right. Well, they explained it
Right.
in the book that the man who was working on it, there were 7 craft that were originally at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Then they were sent to Area 51 after they could not figure them out or get them to work. But this one man got inside and it somehow was already working with his DNA and they couldn't figure out why him, but it would only respond to him. And it was really interesting, but it's definitely, I think, consciousness. But they also described that the craft were so light that they could pick a few men could pick them up and carry them.
Yeah.
And it was that you thought you would dent the material like aluminum foil, but it was harder than anything they could test or compare to on Earth. So that's also interesting.
Yes. And that's not uncommon. That has happened several places, like over in Germany in 1926 or so, the 36. They had a crash. The Germans, they had their own Roswell.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
they found that craft in Bavaria, they realized that one man could get underneath it and lift it, but it was huge.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have happened. So
Mhm.
the fact that I wouldn't call it anti-gravity, because it's more like a gravity nullification system.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And that's what he described. He said when he got inside and it started moving, he couldn't feel. He had no idea that he was moving. But he could, the only way he knew is because he could see outside of the craft, which turned transparent once he was inside of it. So
Mhm.
you couldn't see in it, but when he was inside and you turned the controls on, it would go transparent and you could see 360 degrees all the way around you.
Yeah.
And this was in the 60s. They were, or and when he was finally discovering how it worked, it was in the 60s. Now that was us. Now who knows what the Germans figured out before then?
Mhm. Right.
Mhm.
We were after. Right.
Yeah, we
They
were
were.
way, that was
They've done it.
way,
Right.
paperclip had already happened, and von Braun and
There's the
Kammler and all those
famous,
guys. Yeah,
Die Glock, the Nazi build, that, there were, and
but
then the Hanabu craft that they were working on.
and they described the Nazi Bell as being not really a craft, but more of a time travel device.
Which is why they called it the clock, right?
Yeah, the clock, and
Yeah.
and hundreds of people actually died during the testings of it. But what are your opinions on these craft, being more or less of a time travel device as well?
Die Glocke, yeah, that's the bell. That was, I think they got the technology maybe from two different places, because there was this lady, Maria Orticius, or Maria Orsic is what you're calling her here in the West. She was channeling information from a star system in the Aldebaran star system, from a planet there. And they told her that we are giving you this information on how to build a craft so you can come and visit us. They kept giving her technical information, and she wrote it down the way it came from her, and there was some automatic writing involved and the regular channeling she did. And she was an uneducated, basically, young girl, 19, 18 years old. And everybody laughed at her. But there were one time she got those drawings in front of a high-ranking military officer. He looked at it and he said, wait a minute, she's on to something here. So he got the drawings and he brought it to some scientists, and they got all excited because they saw some principles that would build on to what they were working with, because they got the Roswell incident in Bavaria and they got the craft there and they got into it. And there they had the column in the middle. That was the drive system of the craft. So it may have been something similar. The glocke, or the bell, that was composed of such that they had a core, and then they had one chamber where they had red mercury being driven in one direction. Outside of that, there was another chamber with red mercury being driven the other way. They're opposite of them. And between the two cores, there were magnets sitting in a circle around it. So when the magnets were moving against each other, they created electricity, and then they pulled energy from the red mercury. So this was transmitted to Maria Orsic,
Mm-hmm.
and also that was the core of the bell, or the glocke. And there was actually, I've seen a short movie of them test flying it inside of this big circle.
Right.
It was cables, actually chains were attached to it so it couldn't fly away. But they lifted it off and it was bouncing around and they couldn't really control it because that was the early, but they found a way to control it so they could I'm not so sure exactly how they control the output of the levitation. That is, I talked to Wendell Stevens, Colonel Wendell Stevens here in Tucson. I interviewed him 2 or 3 times on my TV show here in town. And he said he didn't even know exactly how they controlled the bell, but it was done by changing the magnetic electromagnetic output in different areas around it. So I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but they made it work.
Right.
Now,
And
you said that some people died from doing that, and that is true. Quite a few of them actually that worked on it, and they didn't make it because later models of the Glock, they replaced the red mercury with D2O, deuterium, which is radioactive water. And then they got a lot more power out of it. And that's what they put in to the Haunebu 3, the flying disc. And the Haunebu 3, and I'm sure also they did that on the Haunebu 4, which there is, which Colonel Wendell Stevens talked about. They may have sent one of those off to Mars, but they lost contact with it. And he thought maybe because the deuterium, that radioactivity made the metal around it brittle. So it may have broken up.
Yeah, so there was a couple of issues with that technology. For one, they started off trying to use copper coils and realized they just melt the copper right away. So the mercury that they started using wasn't actually liquid mercury, it was vaporized mercury is the way they described it. And that was what they had to use to power it, but it was highly radioactive. And they had to find a way to keep it cool as well, because they could only use it for so many seconds at a time. It would overheat and potentially explode. And the way it was described is that they kept developing that technology out to where it came down to the size of that bell was the size of now a handheld device that could be essentially used as a time travel device by an individual. And I believe that happened a long time ago, and I think time travel has been happening on this planet for quite some time. And there's been the shadow groups in the government who have been exploring with that and experimenting with that. And I think that might explain some of these Mandela effects and these shifts in timelines. And I think that's where we get into the whole conversation of parallel universes and just things that we don't really quite think about and comprehend. We've seen it in the sci-fi movies, but we've never been able to apply it to our reality because, like you said, it doesn't fit the paradigm. But I think it's time to start shifting that conversation towards that. And it would explain a lot of what we're seeing right now if we include the time travel aspect and the parallel universe aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know, when I say we, I don't mean that but I mean technology today do know how to make a time travel device. And I've read about probably 7 or 8 different scientific papers explaining how to do it. And if people listening here now want to go look at some of that, they can go. There's some very credible papers. The major internet newspapers, you can go to bbc.com/news and go to /July 11, 2018. They have an interview with the scientists and they say, yeah, we know how to make a time travel device, but we just can't do it yet. They didn't explain why they couldn't. Chances are that the oil companies would be really upset if we discovered that, wait a minute, we don't need oil.
Right. Yeah. I
Right.
heard you say in a previous interview, like you need as much energy as the sun to power one of these devices. But he's in that book I was reading, they specifically said in the capsule that they were experimenting with at Montauk in the 60s, it contained the power of 10 suns is the way they describe the power source.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why it was so dangerous, and that's why it had to be super cooled so it wouldn't blow up the planet. But we get into, they talk about, some of these failed experiments tearing, ripping and tearing the fabric of space and time. And that's where we get some of these bleed throughs from other dimensions and stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know. Up and beyond. Remember Ben Rich, the
Yeah.
head of the Lockheed Skunk Work? I have a quote from him, and in fact, I wrote it down, so I'm going to make it accurate for you. He said, "We know how to take ET home, and it will not take a lifetime to do it. We already have the means to travel among the stars, but these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to ever let them out to benefit humanity. Anything you can imagine, we know how to do."
It's a
I
beautiful
can
quote.
imagine a lot of things.
Right.
Right. It's
So
it's so
everything,
compartmentalized
yeah,
by these very few people that they're clinging to that power, and they're not, they'll die before they give up the power. So in my
and maybe,
opinion, that we have benevolent forces that are helping, because they're not just helping us and the planet, they're helping themselves and the whole galaxy, because that's what that leads to. When you
yeah,
have these evil beings that crave more and more power, well, it goes beyond just this planet and this solar system. They go out, and especially when you get into the reptilians teaming up with the Nazis and these dark forces.
yeah,
We've heard many insiders talk about that
yes.
stuff.
Space is full of life. And once you get outside of the atmosphere, then you're going to meet them.
Right.
They're there. In fact, anybody with a telescope that magnified 800 times or more, and you can buy those things on the internet for about, $140. Point that on the moon and just keep following it as it tracks. You're going to see ships in orbit around the moon. You can see them.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that
Right.
footage, and it's crazy. And then it's like, man, is that real or not? But I feel like it's real. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There is a YouTuber in Canada, Bruce Schwartz. Bruce Sees All on YouTube. He's got close-ups of the crafts on the moon, even in the craters. He got close-ups of cities on the moon, where you can see streets
yeah,
Mhm.
and big buildings. So
Right.
yeah,
someone
we
just yesterday recommended that I check out that channel too. So I'm gonna have to check that out. Bruce C.
Mhm.
Paul. Very interesting.
Bruce Sees All.
So let's get back into the time travel parallel universe conversation. So you mentioned in a previous show that you did, I think with Neil Gar and Portal to Ascension, that you were able to peek into other timelines, and you never really dwelled on how you were able to do that. And I'm very curious to, I'm very curious to hear your understanding of how you can, what is another timeline, how we even know they exist, and how you're able to peek into them and why we can shift them.
Well, the thing about that part of it, timelines, it is a little tricky to understand unless you understand what time is.
Right.
It always works better if you understand how it works. And I had an incredible experience close to 10 years ago now, where I was sitting in meditation and the universe was downloaded into my mind, both in concept and detail. And the things that I was interested in was clearly depicted, but it was very quick. It was just a few seconds and the whole thing was downloaded. And later on, I could just think about something and then it pops out, I could see it. Timelines are based on consciousness because quantum mechanics has proven to us that we live in a mind-created universe. So then the question is, can we prove that? Well, when it gets into the equation, I lose myself, but I rely on other people smarter than me. And one of them, James Gate, he says that when we get deep in the equations, explaining the fundamental particles in the fabric of space, we find computer language. We didn't put it there, but it shows up. And intelligence put it there because it is too organized to be there by accident. So if we have computer language, there's got to be a computer somewhere, right?
Right.
So if there's a computer somewhere, I can understand that. But what I'm really interested in is who's sitting at the computer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Let me point to him. That's you. You are sitting at the computer because there is a universal consciousness that you are part of. And that universal consciousness projects things through your consciousness into your reality. And everything around you is mind created from your consciousness based on an acceptance of what you have been told and experienced and seen and so on. So here, the computer here, that's mind created.
Mm-hmm.
But now, this is our timeline right here. And I bet many of us have had incidents where things feel different, feel like something is wrong. Like when I came, it was a while back, I came home with my handful of grocery bags, put it on the island in the kitchen, and put the car keys next to it, put the groceries away, and walk over to get the keys, and they're not there anymore. They're gone. Couldn't find them anywhere. Well, what happened? Something moved the keys. I found them in the freezer. And the groceries that I can remember nothing had gone in the freezer. So something happened there, and there was a time slippage. I found myself in a parallel timeline, slightly different from what the first one was. And I bet a lot of people out there have had this experience where suddenly things are a little different, but later on, it seems normal again. And if you go to YouTube, you'll see a whole bunch of videos of people just put in their time slippage or time travel, and you're going to see it. They're full of people having these experiences. And I think that is done by our consciousness. Our consciousness rips us from one timeline and moves us into another one. And the thing is that you can create those new timelines yourself. I did that many times. I did one of those. That was a major one back in Europe. I grew up on a farm, was the only son on the farm, and the traditions are very strong there. I was going to be a farmer. There is no way around it. I went on to agricultural college and became an agronomist, and that was I was groomed for. But I figured out that I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. So I broke with that timeline and I went to the United States to become a pilot. That was a major shift in timelines. I had another major shift when I quit flying and started researching and working with the mind. And minor shifts in between are caused by your thoughts different than what you are expected to think. You could end up in a different timeline.
So
Yeah.
This is interesting because, you said that accepted science proves that electrons and photons can exist simultaneously in two places at once, which means then humans could potentially exist simultaneously in two places at once. So when you're talking timelines, that's different than like a parallel universe. Or is that other timeline technically a parallel universe if there's infinite number of parallel universes?
Maybe, but a timeline, two different timelines could very well be within the same universe. But a different universe, that's where everything is different. Because universes have many timelines in it for each one of us. I think there are hundreds or a myriad of different timelines that we have created. And there's a very good likelihood that we are in every one of those timelines. I'm still wondering how the guy back in Europe is doing back on the farm, because I just might be there too.
And this
Yeah.
very thing you're talking about is what came through many of Dolores Cannon's QHHT sessions with people. What would come through is that there are an infinite, basically, number of parallel timelines, parallel yous that made a slightly different choice, because every millisecond, every second, you're making a choice, you're doing something.
Yeah.
Well, what if you made a different choice? Where does that energy go? Well, that's in a different timeline, essentially, is what it works out to be. And then there's a timeline where you made an even different choice than that, and then a different, and then different.
Yeah.
And then something different happened to you, and then something different happened after that point. And they're all happening now because time ultimately doesn't exist. It's just an experience that you're having. We're experiencing time, but it ultimately, all that exists is the now moment, is the 0 point, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's just it's always now, right? It's never yesterday, it's never tomorrow, it's always now. But we have an experience of linear time, but it's all just different streams of energy, I guess you could say. That's
Right.
all in the now moment.
Yeah.
You said something right there. There is always now. Now is the only thing that exists. Anything else, there's a record of the now.
Mm-hmm.
So what was explained to me in the download that I had was time. There is some physical evidence, a stream of time. Are you familiar with what a square wave generator is?
I've
I've heard
heard
square waves.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
it's because what I saw is that the nows, the present moments, are recorded. You have a present moment right now. That is the spike of energy with pictures and everything that we do in it. And then it moves over about just a little bit. And that distance is the quantum, let's see, 1 to the 32nd, I think it is, the Planck distance.
Mm-hmm.
And then it collapses to nothing.
Right.
In between each present moment, there is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it moves up, it spikes again. Now you get a new present moment, move over a little bit, and it collapses to nothing.
Different frame. It's like frames in a movie. It's like frame, just going really fast, right?
And they are placed so close together that when we move through it, it looks like a movie.
Right.
And
so reality is constantly flashing off and on and off, billions of times a second. We just don't perceive it. Obviously, it's happening so fast.
And then you have the naysayers that say, no, I don't believe that, because I have a camera that can take really fast pictures, thousands of pictures a second. I should be able to see between those.
Not fast enough. By a long
camera
shot.
Doesn't exist.
Right, exactly. In the non-exist time. Right. It only exists in the on flash. So
right.
That's not how that works. Right.
So whenever you peeked into this other timeline, You explained seeing 2016 and Hillary Clinton winning the election and World War III happening, but you said we shifted timelines and that didn't happen. Can you explain, for one, a little more detail of what you saw and how you believe that we shifted?
Let me back up a little bit. The different timelines have different things in it. In 2003, BBC Television came over to the United States to do a TV documentary on time travel. They had Michio Kaku in it and Green and myself. And I demonstrated a little electronic device, a box, and an electromagnet that is extremely strong, and then a time coil. I demonstrated that they brought us down to New Orleans and we did a shoot down there. And I demonstrated to them, but there were 7 or 8 people in the room, so I wasn't able to do anything there, but I demonstrated how it works. But this electronic device has given me some very strange experiences. I have photographic evidence of that time travel and time slippage at the same time. On Broadcast Team Alpha, if you go to Picture Gallery, we're going to, let's see, page 15. In the middle of the page, there's 2 pictures next to each other. They are taken at the same time, but they're different. One picture, the road has had heavy rain on it because the road is wet, and then there is leaves on the trees. The other picture, the road is dry, and there's no leaves on the trees. But what I did is that I sat down and concentrated on doing something through the internet. I was sitting there watching a lens from a camera over in Europe in my hometown. They were watching a road intersection, and I took a screenshot of it. So I saved that, and then later on, quite a bit later on, I tried to put myself and do my mind exercise with it, and I tried to go back to the same time and take another screenshot. Now, I missed it. I missed it by 1 minute and 5 seconds. But that's close. And the road should not dry up and all the leaves disappear in 1 minute and 5 seconds. So you can look, there's a lot of writing on there that explains how I did it. So that'll be the better one probably to go read that. But this happened. And I have been trying to get this verified. I talk to people every so often, scientists that say, I tell them I got 2 pictures I'd like to give me your evaluation on. I want you to run it through the computer and see if you find any dislocations in pixels and anything wrong with them. And they said, sure, that's simple. And then they asked me, what are the pictures? When were they taken? What is it? So as soon as I mentioned time travel, they want nothing to do with it.
They shut up. Yeah, shut down.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit the paradigm.
They think it's fantasy and doesn't exist.
Yeah, most of these people, they are working with universities and stuff. And so if anybody out there is qualified to do those things, I really want to hear from you.
Well, I'm sure there's people now, there would be people more open to do it as opposed to a few years ago even. I think, a lot of people are breaking free from that old paradigm, and I think somebody will show up that'll be able to help you with that. So then, so that was the beginning of you being able to glimpse into another timeline where you saw the Hillary Clinton thing, or?
That was, I did some things before, and some of the stuff that I saw back that I saw earlier, before that incident when I took those pictures, they were not very nice. So that's why I don't really talk about it much, because I don't want to give it energy. Because I changed 20 years ago. My mind was in that timeline where those things happen.
Right.
Because I was on TV twice a week explaining the corruption of government, especially locally in Tucson and Arizona, when they did something that wasn't right and illegal. I jumped on top of it and exposed it. And I had a huge audience. Just in Tucson alone, there was 500,000 people watching every week. And
Wow.
they hated my guts. But I was on it for 6 years. And then when I quit that, I changed direction. I became more spiritual in my path, and that changed the timeline. In that previous timeline, I had a little peek at it later on. In fact, Hillary won the presidency, and we went through World War III as a nuclear war.
Right.
So now, none of that is going to happen. There's still hiccups, but I have seen enough of the future. I'm not worried about it at all. It's going to be good in the end, because also what's happening is that the many different timelines are closing in. We're going to end up in one timeline with good things in it. All the rest of it will be phased out from where we are.
Yeah, I
Right.
believe that. I agree with that too. I'm not even
Right.
slightly worried about the
Same.
future. I think it's all going to work out.
Yeah, the thing is that, you have Operation Bluebeam and things like that they have planned for the fake alien invasion. And yeah, that's been a long time program. Even they talked about it 50 years ago that they were planning to do this. They didn't have the technology, but they were developing it, and now they have it. Did you guys ever see that movie from, I think it was from Dubai? It was a short movie clip, video, where there were whales flying through the air.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the blue beam technology, the hologram. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they have it now. They can put thousands of ships in the sky, all holographic images. And in between, they can fly some of their own that they use particle beam weapons and shoot things on the ground to create more fear.
Right.
Right.
I am been programming the universe for that not to happen. I think they're going to fail at it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how it could work, because I would say thousands upon thousands, if not millions of people know this narrative and know this is what their plan is. And if you know that, then it takes all the power away from it. That black magic doesn't work anymore. And
Right.
you just rob them of that power. So I think
Right.
collectively, as we even talk about it and understand that that was their plan, it foils their plan.
Right. Because ultimately they need us to stay fully asleep to keep feeding, powering their system and what they want to happen, keep buying into it for it to work. And too many of us are awake now. Too many of us don't trust governments, don't trust the things that happen on a mass scale. And too many of us value our freedom over just giving away our power to the state and governments and like
Right.
that. And there's too many to know about the stuff we're talking about now. Even this is starting to become, UFOs are becoming mainstream, ETs, this types of stuff. It's too big. Too many people are awake. They're not going to be able, because we are power source. It all comes back to us. They have to just trick us into creating it. And like you said, with the timelines, it's like you were unconsciously creating or living in that negative timeline until you realize, wait a second, I can switch timelines. And it comes down to you. It's not something external to you. And I think, and then collectively, it's like we hear stories of Project Looking Glass and different technologies that supposedly view into the future. Well, there's no the future. There's infinite possibilities that the future could be. But you're on a certain trajectory at any point in the now moment. You're on a certain trajectory based on if you just stay on autopilot, basically. But the second you make a different choice consciously, now you're on a different trajectory. And collectively, I think that's what we did. We were on that trajectory where Hillary Clinton won, World War III started, nuclear New World Order fully implemented. And then collectively, we started waking up and making different choices and raising our vibration.
Yeah.
Until, hey, wait a second, Hillary was supposed to win. They all thought she was going to win because they all saw it in their technologies and stuff, and that was their plans. Uh-oh, something else happened. That's why you saw them freak out for 4 years straight and throw everything they could to try to like change back to their timeline, right? That they wanted.
Yeah. And for everybody listening out there, when we talk about conspiracy theories and stuff like that, there's going to be a phenomenal shortage in the United States, especially in the United States, of conspiracy theories because they're all coming true.
Exactly.
Now, remember what the head of the CIA said. The head of the CIA under Ronald Reagan, and I wrote that one down too. There's a quote. I got to read it to you. And he said that when we wake up and find that everything the American public believe is false, we know our disinformation program is working.
Yep.
Yeah.
Take that one, put it in your pipe and smoke it. I tell you, that tells it all.
Right.
Says it all right there. Right.
Yeah.
When everything you believe is a lie because we programmed you to believe it in the first place.
Yeah.
It's not something you came to on your own. That's why I stress so much. Take your power back, take your mind back. Question everything you think is true, everything you currently believe. Really form your own beliefs. Go on your own journey of finding out what's true and what you actually believe. Because what you'll find when you do that is that almost all the beliefs you have are something that's been handed to you by someone else, and then you just bought into it a long, long time ago.
So
absolutely. And in my book about spiritual science, higher conscious thinking, and how to access the universal consciousness, I got a whole chapter back there, how people really can do time travel on their own. There's some mind techniques to it. You gotta, if you haven't done it already, start meditation, because meditation is usually the gate to higher consciousness.
right.
Absolutely.
And in there, I explained how to do it, and that's just one method. You can have different variances on it yourself, whatever makes you feel good about it. But it can be done. You can see, you can have visions of it, or you can actually see yourself right there on site sometime in the future. But it helps if you have thought of something similar to pull you forward, because you mentioned earlier, Aaron, that it is all sitting there as potential for creation in the quantum. That's it. It's only potential. We have to bring it to be real.
We're the ones that pull that into our experience, but we're the ones doing it. So you're either going to be doing it unconsciously, or you're going to be consciously doing it, consciously creating, as some people say.
So you're saying time travel can occur through meditation in simple terms?
It very well can. And that is also anybody that goes as far to attain what is called city consciousness, SIDI consciousness. That is when you actually become all mind. You really don't have use for a physical body anymore, but you use it for ease of communication and interaction with other people and things. There are people that have done this, but they don't hardly ever talk about it.
Right.
I know two that have done it. And that's why one guy, I was with him, and he left, and then I called him, and now he was home already. But he lived a half hour away, and he got there in about, I don't know, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So things happen.
I think it happens way more than we think or even realize, because if something like that does happen, I don't know that we always have a memory of it.
Yeah.
I think things are occurring all the time that we're blipping in and out of timelines, and who knows what it is. But like you said, like you misplaced your keys in a freezer. Like, so you could easily write that off as you just, oh, I must have put them there and I don't remember, or something actually happened where you shifted realities and some dimensional shift occurred, and it's worth further explanation or further exploration. And
Yeah.
like one of your comments from one of your videos I loved, you said, whenever something happens that you cannot explain, take it for what it is. Don't try to explain it away. It is your experience to hang on to, and it will make sense later. And I think if you don't explain away those things, suddenly your reality will shift, because now you're looking at everything through a new lens instead of just saying, oh, that's not real.
Yeah, we're good at that.
Yeah.
Right.
There's another way to do this, and that is through hypnosis.
Right.
My co-host on the broadcast team, Alpha Shore, she is a hypnotherapist, and she's doing something that I haven't seen anybody else do, and that is that she puts somebody into a hypnotic state, and then she takes them forward in time to meet themselves, have a discussion with themselves, maybe some advice, because chances are that your future self may be possibly a little smarter than you are back here. You can get advice and you can talk to yourself up there. And some phenomenal things have happened when you do that. That you can do in hypnosis. You don't get those results unless you get deep into theta.
Mhm.
But when you do, those things open up.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Years ago, I had a session with somebody, and she was like, what do you do when you meditate? It's like, oh, I try to, connect with my guides and this and that and whatever. She's like, have you ever thought about trying to connect with your future self and asking him for advice? And I was like, no. She's like, maybe try that. And I've done it on a number of occasions in meditation. Now, I don't know how successful it was, and sometimes you don't know if you're making things up, but it's really interesting, and we don't always think to do that. So I'm glad you brought that up again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the concept of thinking that you might be making it up, that concept enters your mind because you are not deep enough. If you get deep enough, there will be no doubt. You will know you experienced it.
Mm, that's helpful, actually. Very helpful.
Yeah. And that's what, there are things that is used by certain hypnotists, like stage hypnotists and magicians. I was taught by a magician, because our mind is full of barriers, and we got to get by all those barriers. And he was good at that. He taught me how to wipe out the barriers and get right to your source, down deep in the theta. And that's what happens when you get deep enough. But you will not find those methods in the hypnosis book written by PhD that works for a university and stuff like that. They will never tell you the real deep stuff, because that will affect their purse, because people start questioning, wait a minute,
Right.
do you actually say that there are several murders done under hypnosis and the guy didn't even know he did it?
Mhm.
Yeah, it happened.
Yeah.
So now people will back off, so they will lose money, and that's why they don't write about it. Because if you get people deep enough, you tell them what to do and they will go do it. And they have no clue they actually did it afterwards. They're one trick. But you can on the street, anywhere, you can put somebody into a hypnotic state in a matter of about 2 seconds, because that's called the rapid induction method, is one trick. And if you walk up to somebody, shake his hand and pull really hard on the hand, that creates a shock in his mind. He, for a moment there, his mind go blank, and then you tell him sleep. Now he slumps over, and he is in that hypnotic state where you can tell him what to do.
Wow. And I also think that can be done through means of technology and frequencies nowadays. Like I don't know. Like I feel like they've mastered that weaponry. But it's very interesting. Like, I think we're always in a state of hypnosis most of the time. Like, even while you're driving, that's arguably a state of hypnosis. When you're watching a movie, you're in a state of hypnosis. When you're on your phone scrolling like a zombie, it's a state of
Yeah.
hypnosis. And there's people
Yeah.
that, you know, they're like, I can't be hypnotized. You know, it doesn't work on me. Like, you're hypnotizing yourself all day long. You don't even
When-
realize it.
When you go into
Everyone-
theta,
Right.
you become suggestible, and that's why when you watch TV or movies and stuff, the programming goes into your subconscious, and then you don't even realize it, and then that changes your behavior subconsciously,
Right.
Yeah.
and your thoughts and your feelings and all that.
Right.
And
So,
they put subliminal messages and all kinds of other technologies, like you just said, on top of that, that makes it that much worse. So it's like you really have to, like, that's why waking up is so important, because if you stay asleep, you're just like a sitting duck for all this stuff. But the more awake you become, the more you raise your frequency, the more you get in your heart, use your will and intent, boom, it's game over. They can't touch you at that point.
Right.
That's what they don't want us realizing.
why do I need to wake up? Why does it matter to me? Because otherwise you're a sitting duck. I
It's
love that.
everything. It's literally everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
for fun, I would love for you to tell us a story about the man from a country that does not exist. And
I tell you, the really good one there is that go to the internet and try not to use Google. They censor so much. Use anything else. There's one good one. That's Tor browser. They don't censor anything. You can get on Russian, you can get on Chinese, you can get on see anything.
The dark web, that's how people get on the dark web.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's not necessarily that. Yeah, you probably can do that too. I've never been there, but I don't know.
I just heard you have to have a Tor browser to use the dark web or whatever.
Yeah, Tor is pretty good.
Completely.
And then you put in the search bar, the man from Taureed, Taureed, and you get to read the story. You can see pictures of him, the man in the 1950s that showed up at the airport in Tokyo, and they was going to process him through, and they started looking at his passport, and so that doesn't quite look right. So they asked him, where are you from? And he said, from Taureed. Okay. So they pulled him aside because the country does not exist, but he had a passport from that country. Right. And they asked him, where is Taureed? So they brought him a map, and he pointed to it. It is the country of Andorra, squeezed mountains between Spain and France in the Pyrenees Mountains. In our existence, that country is called Andorra. Mm-hmm. In his timeline, that was called Taureed. Mm-hmm. And they just didn't know what to do with this, so they kind of told him, we're going to sequester you here we got to do some more research. So they put him in a hotel room, and there were two guards outside, police officers. They were outside. So he went into the room. This was on quite a few floors off the ground, and in the morning, the guards knocked on the door and nothing happened. So they opened up and they walked in, and the guy was gone. On him, he had currencies, monetary currency, paper currencies and coins from several different countries that actually do exist. But also country bills, currency bills from Taureed, which doesn't exist. And there's several pages of information what the police have done, and there are people that have done research on this, and they're saying that, there is a police record of him. The police have a record of him, so it did happen.
And so he didn't only disappear, but all of his belongings that the police had in custody, locked up, disappeared out of a locked box, right?
Yeah. So it all went. And now they really investigated some more, but they really didn't come up with anything of value, so to speak.
I just,
But
It's
Yeah.
almost like he slipped through like a natural portal that opened up or something and somehow went into our universe or our timeline or whatever for
right.
temporarily and then went back.
yeah, and that makes sense to me because there is a safety valve in the universe.
Mm,
Where you are when you go outside of the timeline or in the future or past or whatever, you're anchored somewhere. And the universe have a way to bring you back to where you started.
mm,
Interesting.
yeah,
And
interesting.
I think you do that by thinking yourself back.
Yeah.
Mm,
I don't know. It's just so fascinating to me, and it kind of ties into with what we're talking about. Like, this is a
Yeah.
real case, a real scenario where something like this happens. You know, we've heard of other stories similar to this where, you know, guys, people have, our currency has been found from the future in other years and other
mhm.
places. It just doesn't fit into our reality. So, and, you know, that guy who showed up in the airport, he was even in his passport, it showed that he had been through that airport like twice in the previous month.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
so he was like, you
Right.
guys are crazy. There was like this whole argument back and forth. So I wonder, like, if he accidentally, like, just slipped back into his reality or someone pulled him back. Like, was there other forces at play? You know, these types of subjects fascinate me. So,
Yeah, I know.
and it
And
would
of
be
course,
just timelines interacting with each other. Yeah.
yeah, and
Mhm.
here in America, we have our own incident like that, and that is a guy named Andrew Carlsen in 2003. He was arrested for insiders trading in New York because he started with $800 in a matter of a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. He made $350 million from those $800. And the regulators, they start looking at that and say, well, wait a minute, that can't happen. That is insiders trading. So they came and arrested him. He was
Mhm.
hauled into court and he told the judge that, yeah, I'm really sorry. He says, it got out of hand. And the judge asked him, how did you know to do 126 high-risk trades and never lose a dime on either one of them? And he said, well, I'm a time traveler.
Hmm.
From 2056 or something like that. And the judge, of course, he didn't believe him. So he said, well, we're going to keep you here until you tell us who you got the information from. So they locked him up in jail. They put $1 million bond on him. And he was sitting in jail for a couple of days. And one man came with a cash for $1 million, gave it to the clerk of the court or whoever they gave it to. And then both of them, Andrew Carlsen and the guy that came and bailed him out, they left and they were never seen again.
I've
Now,
never heard that story. Interesting.
I haven't
yeah.
either. That's a new one.
And then, you got always naysayers out there. Oh, that's just a made up story. Guess what? I looked. There's a police record. Yeah.
Mm, interesting.
He
So it
was
really happened.
he was at Rikers Island for 2 days. So yeah, that was real.
And
Yeah. And then you got John Teeter, who, was on Coast to Coast, like called in. And that's a whole what's on him?
Mm-hmm.
You think he was legit?
Oh, I totally believe this could happen. Having seen what I see, I believe this could very well happen.
mhm,
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
right. So
And then you have Andrew Bashago, who claims he was in Project
Yeah.
Pegasus and time traveled
with an incredible amount of detail,
with
an
Yeah.
amazing amount of detail. Yeah.
And
Have you guys interviewed him?
yes,
We
we
have.
have. And
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm actually putting together a presentation for our conference, and it's going to be dealing with some time travel, parallel reality aspects. And I've been listening to his testimony again, and so some of the buildings and some of the places he talks about. I was like, I'm going to look these up, and I've been like locating the buildings, and like it's really interesting. Like nothing he says I can't go check out myself. Besides like the stories that we can't prove, but like all the facilities and the buildings that he's just rattling off. It's exactly where he says they were, and it's like these weird, very curious locations. And so before we wrap this up, at the very beginning, we talked about talking to spirits and the Tesla Spirit Radio, and actually communicating with possible beings from the astral realm or the other side, of paranormal, type of stuff. What is the Tesla Spirit Radio, and have you explored it?
Oh, that's it's a long story, but there are several ways you can do that. One of them is the Tesla Spirit Radio, and that is in 1901, Nikola Tesla created a radio circuitry that he left on his desk, and it suddenly started having voices. So he is quoted, and I think I'll paraphrase his quote. I get pretty close. It says, "I was alone in my laboratory at night, and I heard two voices communicating with each others in a language I did not understand. It terrified me." So also remember, Nikola Tesla was fluent in 7 languages. So he didn't understand what they were talking about. So it was probably either an Earth language that he didn't understand or parallel timeline. That could be. But this is easy to make. You go on the internet and you can, Tesla Spirit Radio, you Google it and you'll find the part. You can find the schematics and how to make it, and it's really simple. I think it's about 14 different parts on it, and if you know a little bit about electronics, you can put that together. If you have a friend, if you don't know anything about that, you have a friend, buy the parts and give him, send two sets to him, make one for himself and make one for you. That way you can get it done and start experimenting with. Go to YouTube and put in Tesla Spirit Radio. You can hear the spirits talking.
Wow.
Try this, and you can. And then there's another one that is coming up, and that is done right here in Tucson. Actually, they are. There's something called the Soul Phone, and that is Dr. Schwartz, Gary Schwartz. He actually has patented, because they have run through a computer, through circuitry, and also a transmitter at the other end, where they can type in on the computer questions, and the answers come back in form of yes or no. Yes is a green light, no is a red light. And so far, that this was probably about a year ago or so, he said that when we ask the questions, so far, he says, only correct answers has come back.
Wow.
So he don't know who's at the other end, if it's the universal mind or if it's somebody out there that pretty sharp is answering. He's not sure.
The Soul Phone, SOUL phone.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And then there's another guy over in France. I read that in a newspaper back in Europe in the 1960s, before you guys were born.
Yep.
He was in southern France in the Toulouse area. He took a Tesla coil, brought it out to the graveyard, put it right next to a fresh grave, walked away about 20 feet or maybe a little more, plug it in, of course, so it's working, and then he walked away, start taking pictures. Very often, he could see the dead guy standing next to the grave. And there was no question, that was the dead guy standing there.
Wow.
So he was starting to show these pictures around to his friends in town, and they said, wait a minute, you took pictures of a dead guy? Oh, that's got to be Satan that is helping you out. So they started ostracizing him. And he said that he had to move because if he hadn't moved, he said they probably would have killed me.
It's like another version of the witch
Right.
trials.
Yeah.
The
That
witch
was
hunts.
the Bible Bells of France,
Right. I don't understand it, so it must be evil. It must be demons and Satan.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is
Classic.
something that comes up a lot more than you would think today. Still, people are still grab onto that. Anything outside their belief is a demon, which is, like you said, you understand it because it's outside their paradigm. But man, what a way to live, just stuck inside of a box like that.
Yeah. I know.
It's just an extreme version of fear of the unknown,
Right.
which is as old as time. It's as old as, people naturally fear what they don't understand. And when you fear something enough, you eventually will attack it, try to get rid of it, demonize it.
Yeah.
That's when you start causing harm because you're just in a ton of fear, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's one of the reasons why it's so important to get out of fear and to seek understanding, so you don't have to be afraid of things.
Yeah, if you're buried in the religion, then you're buried in fear anyway. So
right,
exactly.
Yeah. Well
I got out of it, luckily.
Yeah, and
about
now
12 years
there's
ago.
one quick way too, also where you can communicate with extra earthly beings. I guess is maybe one term for it. You can leave them written messages. But remember, you're here. They're outside of the physical. So they're outside of the box, looking into the box, seeing you. So any astral traveler can tell you this. Write your messages backwards. Because when they look into a box where you are, it's like you looking in the mirror. Everything is backwards. So write the messages backwards. And you can say, show me in a dream, and then write out what you want to see. Because spiritual entities have an easier way to communicate with you through dreams, because those dreams may not all be physical. You may have left the body and then have a memory of what you saw out there coming back when you wake up.
Yeah, when you're dreaming, your reality isn't created through your beliefs. You let go of the beliefs. The beliefs dissolve. The beliefs dissolve when you fall asleep. So all of the unknown can happen because you're not limiting yourself and holding yourself back by those barriers that are up during the day. So
yeah, a lot of limitations go away.
Right. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there any last words you'd like to leave us with? Anything else you want to cover before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think I gotta mention it. I have the book on the shelf up there, but I wrote a book that will teach you how to use your mind in ways you normally would think would be impossible. And that book is Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness. I get emails from people every week saying it changed my life. And I also show you in there how to create the future and place it in a place in the future. Go back and forth and visit it every day. So you create the future before you have to live it. So when you get to that point in the future, you just walk into it. And I've done a lot of that, and it works. But most people, they spend more time planning their vacation than planning their life. How dumb is that, So plan your future. Put it in the future, let's say at a Christmas party next year, and know what you want. Create a mental image of it with emotion, intention, love, and gratitude for already having it. And then go back and forth and visit it every day. You get drawn up that timeline, so when the Christmas party comes, you just walk into it.
I love that.
Exactly.
The universe will get in the game with you and help you create it.
Hmm.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a form of manifestation,
Yep.
really.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Do you know about Neville Goddard? Who
Mhm.
talks about all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff? Yeah, he's like he said exactly what you just said. He's like, if
Okay.
you think thoughts, energize it with your emotions, keep doing that, it will pop into your reality. It has to. You will experience that, and that's what the cabal, the dark forces, they know this stuff, and they're
Oh,
using
yeah.
it against us instead of for us, because they're trying to control with that knowledge, which is power.
Yeah.
And so when we wake up and use that for ourselves, that's when it's game over, because we're the
Yeah.
ones doing it. We just have
Well
to
said.
do it consciously rather than being tricked into creating someone else's reality.
Yep. Absolutely.
So you
So
nailed it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you did. So let our audience know where they can get your book, your website, your YouTube channel, all that stuff, please.
Yeah, and you can go to Amazon and you'll find that book. And if you contact me, there's another one too. If you are in business or like to be in business or like to have a better, smooth running family, you could also, there's another book that is called Universal Success Principles and How Billionaires Think. I learned a lot from those guys, and it's in the book that I have mentored some people, helped them start businesses, and it's working pretty good, because if you run your life by principles, the
Mhm.
details will fall into place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
you can also go to broadcastteamalpha.com and poke around, go into the picture gallery. There's 5,000 unbelievable pictures that should not exist, but they do. And just also on YouTube, go to Broadcast Team Alpha. We have a lot of shows there and videos. And I also have videos on there about how to reprogram your mind while you sleep.
Mm.
How much easier can that get?
Right.
Yeah.
Let it do the work
Right.
for you. So I have to ask, where does Team Alpha come from? What does that mean? Where did you get that name?
Broadcast Team Alpha, that was Nori Love came up with that title. It's a good one, so we're going to keep it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
we started out about 6 years ago, and we do 3 shows a week now. She's got one, I got one, and then we have one on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock East Coast time, 5 o'clock California time, Pacific, and we do interviews, and I also do some videos of things that expands your mind on. I run out on Sunday nights at the same time.
great. Great. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing all that. And guys, thank you for being here with us tonight. We love you all. We can't do this without you. And if you feel drawn or compelled to join us at our conference in May, tickets are available at rebelsofdisclosure.com. We would love to see you there. And if you can't find a hotel or a lodge room, you can always camp. It's a beautiful campground. So it's a lot of fun, and we encourage you to do that. So rebelsofdisclosure.com. Thank you so much, Augie, for joining us.
Thank
This
you,
has been
Aage. It's been
fantastic.
amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it was. I appreciate
Yeah.
the conversation. This is the type of stuff that gets my mind going. I love it. So, time travel always will fascinate me, and the parallel universe aspect. I think it's becoming more of a reality now, as I said earlier. So, I love steering the conversation in that direction. So, anyway, we love you all, guys. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, have a great evening. Good night.
Good night.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hang it on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos of memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time.
Actually, I was quoting Sherry.
That's the last time Brad will ever quote me.
Hey guys, we hope you can join us this year at the Rebels of Disclosure Conference in Grafton, Illinois at the Pierre Marquette Lodge and Conference Center, May 13th through the 16th. As you can see, we have tons of fun. We made some great memories, and we just wanted to take this opportunity to extend the invite to all of you who've never been. It's so much fun, and it's so important to connect with Soul Family, and we just really look forward to seeing everyone out there.
Yeah, I hope to see you all there. It's a blast. It's really something that you have to experience to know how amazing it is, and it's so much more than just the speakers. It's an amazing time, and it's amazing to connect with Soul Family. So we hope to see you all there.
And all of that information is below at rebelsofdisclosure.com. So grab a ticket and join us. We hope to see you there.